Debbie.
Hi, guys. Hi,
Hi.
Brenda.
Everybody
Abby.
ready?
Yes.
Yeah.
If everybody's ready, I'll call the meeting to order and call the roll. Aldrich,
Here.
Bigford,
Here.
Elmrick,
Here.
Marcy,
Here.
and Osmond here. We have a quorum. And we'll go ahead and open the public comments portion of the meeting. If Mr. Graham would care to give instructions about how to make a public comment, I would appreciate that.
Sure, thank you. Yes, we have a relatively small group with us this morning, but any members of the public who have any thoughts or comments to share with the township board are welcome to speak for up to 3 minutes or 5 minutes if they're speaking on behalf of a group. I think at this point, all I see is Daniel DeFranco. Daniel, did you have any comments for the board before we got going?
No, I'm just excited to hear the conversation today.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate you joining us. Madam Supervisor, I don't see any other members of the public present.
Very good. We'll move on to approval of the agenda. Somebody like to make a motion?
I move to approve the agenda of the Saturday, December 5th, 2020 special meeting.
Is there
All
support?
support. This is Marcy.
And we have motion by Aldrich, supported by Marcy. And I'll go ahead. Is there any discussion? I'll go ahead and call the roll. Aldrich,
Here.
Marcy,
Yes.
Bigford,
Yes.
Helmrich?
Yes.
Osmond, yes.
Yes.
Motion carries. So we have goal setting workshop, strategic plan and kickoff meeting, and I will turn it over to Mr. Graham and Mr. Nielsen.
Well, thank you. I'm just going to do a really brief introduction and more than anything, just say how excited I am to have Larry Nielsen joining us and going to help facilitate a virtual goal setting process over the next few months. As you all have heard from me, we've had to make some updates. This isn't quite the standard process that I know Larry has used over the many years of his very successful career in local government management. But I think we're both pretty excited and confident that the process we've prepared for you all will still get us where we want to go. Today, we're going to use a relatively short, more of a kickoff meeting to present an overview of the process, clarify expectations, do some introductions, really give Larry an opportunity to introduce himself to all of you, give the board an opportunity to say anything you all would like to him, and then start to go into a little bit of a reflection on last year's goals. But largely my role in this is going to be sit back and shut up. So I'm pretty excited to hand it over to Larry Nielsen. And again, we're very excited to have him. So floor is yours, Larry.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, this will be interesting way to do this. You know, usually we work with the whole group and anybody, the key stakeholders to be present, and we go through a very interactive, fast-paced one single session, which ends up with a report from this visioning session and then a proposed draft strategic action plan from that is presented, and then the boards have an opportunity to consider and adopt, and then follow that for the next time frame. In this process, that session is going to be broken down into 4 different exercises that will come to you one after the other. So we'll have some preferred time constraints that we would like to get your responses to, and then back, and then I can work with that and go to the next exercise, get that back, go to the next exercise, and then after all of those exercises are done, then we should be by the end of the month ready to have draft reports back to you for your January meeting. So I think you saw the outline before that we kind of put together for starting with today's kickoff and then December 10th and December 31st or 21st rather. Is that correct? You all had a chance to read through those? Okay, good. Were there any particular questions you had in that format, in that outline?
Mm-mm.
Normally, when we're all together, we get an opportunity to build off of each other. And so one comment from one of you would trigger a comment from another, or it's something you want to build on that way. Doing this virtually, we limit that a little bit, so we can't do it. The first exercise that you'll get following today is the one that I really don't want you to talk with each other about. That one will assess your working relationships as a group and then as an individual. And that design will be so that we can identify some areas of commonality or some areas that as a functioning group that may need to have some attention addressed to them, so that as well as you work together now, you can work together even better. I don't know that we'll find any of those in this from what I've looked at from your minutes and from all of your online presence. You're a pretty cohesive darn group that does a lot of work and isn't bashful about discussing things with each other and arriving at great decisions. So I'm not sure I'll find anything in this first exercise, but it'll be interesting to see what you have with that. The second one, again, will be exercise addressing various aspects of the township operation and aspects of the township in general, and your feelings about those, your desires in those, and your thoughts regarding each of those. And when we get into the exercise 2 and exercise 3 and exercise 4, you can think in the micro and the macro sense. So it might be a comment that you may wish to say, all of our parks, boom, 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 as a macro, and then in a micro, you might identify a single park or a single street or all streets or things of that sort. So we'll get into some macro and micro aspects that you can address. And then as we move to exercise 3, you'll have the opportunity to dream what you want to dream for Saugatuck Township. Where do you want to see Saugatuck Township in the next 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and what the township could become? And then we'll get into the nominal ranking process, which this will be the first time virtually doing this, but when we're all together in a room, you know, you get up and you move around, and I write all these things on the board as we go along and stick them up on the walls, and you all have markers and you're walking around and sticking, and I like this, I like that, and then we work from that. But we're going to try and do that virtually and do this. Any questions with that so far? Okay, great. What I would like to do today is to get some sense of your last 16 goals that came out from last session, and the recent action of your county voters in the opportunity you have of increasing your millage rate from your 0.4 blah, blah, blah rate to 1.7 mils, and what that might mean for you. If we can, I would really like to start with your goal number 1, reform reformat budget and basically update me on where each of you feel the status is of that goal. Has it been accomplished? Is it in progress? Has it been tabled? Did you amend it? Have you dropped it as not necessary or no longer needed, or just dropped it because we haven't paid attention to it, or things of that sort? So tell me about the reformat budget goal that you had and what the current status is on that. Anybody? Sure, go right ahead.
Elmerick here. I marked that as probably one of, if not the most successfully accomplished goals. And I see at this juncture no need to further tweak or set additional goals on that front.
Great. If I'm looking down, I'm making notes as we go along. Okay. By nods of heads or thumbs up, everybody else agree with that? Anybody want to add any other comments to it? Okay, let's go to the number 2 one then. Your millage planning. This one was this one impacted by the county vote to having the opportunity? I see a head shaking. Go ahead, Cindy, and elaborate.
Well, it makes a huge difference to what we can assess in our millage planning. We just have to decide where do we want to go with it, and what goals do we have to get there. But it makes a huge difference. We don't have to lobby for a millage. We just have the power. So
You'll have to adopt annual resolutions and then comply with the rollback provisions and things of this sort. And this whole process will really involve that and identify all those things, the opportunities that might be there for all of you to consider with that additional funding availability that way. So very good. Anybody want to build on what Cindy commented? Okay.
I just would like to make a comment. I'd like to commend our manager for laying the groundwork in terms of educating us on how millage changes are made. And like I said, getting us at a really good point now to address this fully in light of the county resolution.
Great. And he'll have more to do in that area, I'm sure, right, Griffin?
We all will.
Yes, that is true too.
Absolutely.
And then there's a part of that though, where you'll need to keep bringing the community along with that opportunity as well. The outreach and the education that you speak of for yourselves. I'm sure there are segments in the community that may have questions about what that means and how it works and what the benefits are. So as we move along in that, keep the communication aspect to the community in mind as well. Okay, great. What about number 3? General fund operating budget planning. That's goes along with number 2 in the comments about the millage and where you want to go from here now that you have the opportunity to increase the millage and what all of that might mean. Any other comments to that? Okay.
I guess I do have a comment, Larry.
Great.
Everybody should have received their tax bill by now. And it's really interesting to look at how your tax, everybody looks at the bottom line, what do I have to pay in taxes? But it's really interesting to look at how much is allocated for each individual item in your tax bill. Our operating expenses, I don't have my tax bill in front of me right now, but our operating expenses is really quite a low number. In many cases, it's often less than even the interurban or the library.
Right.
So it would be nice if the public could take a chance to look at those tax bills and look at each line item rather than just the bottom line.
And that's key because the local community, you generally are held accountable for the total tax bill when it goes all over the place. And
Mhm.
the portion you get is very, very small. I know in every community that I've worked in, we've always spent a lot of time drawing that out, creating the graphs, the pictures, the educational opportunities, the flyers, the inserts with different mailings and everything to explain that, hey, Saugatuck Township gets 1.07 mils or 0.4 mils, and here's what the library gets, here's what the county sheriff gets, here's what county administration gets. And we would always do that twice a year with the summer taxes and the spring taxes. And that's always very helpful, part of that education aspect as well. It's key. And you'll find a lot of people are just amazed. Oh, really? Out of that county total millage of 40 to 60 mills in most communities, you only get one? You only get $1.07 for every $1,000 that I'm paying? Yeah, right. And so it's a good opportunity to keep selling that. You can't sell it just one time. You got to sell it all the time. Good comments. Let's take a look at number 4.
Can I make a comment on that?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, no, as Cindy pointed out, tax bills all hit this past Tuesday. So my voicemail has been pretty full every day this week, and I've been calling everyone back with their questions. Some of them are on why'd my assessment go up? Why'd my taxes go up? And I just want to say I try to be very friendly, and I do point out to anyone who's inquiring about the actual amount and the rates, I remind them that we have the lowest millage in all of Allegan County. And we also have we have an interesting situation right now because in the last 3 months, I should be keeping count, but we have had the highest number of property transfer affidavits coming in, home selling, certainly in the time I've been in office. And a good chunk of those new buyers are from out of the community. Many are from out of state. And I need to explain to them, why, our service level is very low relative to the fact that our millage is so low. So I try to do as much as I can one-on-one with education, but I'm happy to hear your suggestions on other communication sources and inserts and mailings that we'll probably need to address in the next year.
Sure. The other thing to think about is all those transfer affidavits, when those are processed, your assessor or the county assessor or even the real estate agents and the closing parties know of those. You think about providing those people information that they can provide to the new purchaser, so that they understand about the property tax coming off and all of that as well. So at the front end, you can educate real estate agents with the sale of what a home buyer in Saugatuck Township might expect, or how, besides just welcoming them to the township, here's some explanation on our operations, and here's an explanation on our budgeting and our taxes and things of that sort. We used to do that in some communities, and the welcome wagons, that were around, mostly seem to have gone out of existence in some areas. But then the local government could have that opportunity to replace that. And as you are made aware of new purchasers, new buyers, then you can provide them that information. And on the front end, you can provide information to the title companies and the real estate agents so that they can extend your welcome and your welcoming information to all of the home buyers. Might be one way to help continually educate new people into the township, because they may be coming from cities that have lots of services and lot higher taxes, and they come to your township and they expect that same level of services on 1/10 or 1/20 the taxes. Wow, that's sometimes a big education for people.
No, those are great
Yeah.
points. Thank you for that. And probably I'd say, the number 1 and 2 questions of newcomers are
Yes.
all relative to yard waste pickup, trash hauling, and recycling.
Yep.
And
People want to know that.
We don't do any of that. So,
And then how they work with the county road commission. That was
Right.
always one that I always had to deal with. Besides the ones you mentioned, then they want to know, how do I get a pothole fixed, or,
Right.
that sort of thing. Yeah, very good. Thank you. All right, we ready to move to number 4 then?
Mhm.
yes.
What is the current status of all of your connection fees and REU schedule? Is that been accomplished? Has it been tabled? Is there more work to do with it?
Should Griffin answer that one, or?
Is that Max answering it?
Yes.
Max
You want me
is-
to-
It's okay.
He's outside. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh,
I think probably Mr. Graham could answer the question of the status of that. I believe that we approved a study to be accomplished looking at that, and I'm not quite sure what the status of the study is.
Yeah, Cindy, you're absolutely right. The township board allocated a significant amount of money in this fiscal year's budget to work with a financial consultant and the township engineer to work on preparing a 10-year capital improvement plan, and then a corresponding rate study connection fee review. That process kicked off about a month ago and is going to be taking place throughout the winter months. I'm actually going to be meeting with the engineer next week to have a status update. But at this point, we're anticipating having the capital improvement plan piece finalized by the end of the year. Let some of our neighbors, the Cal Lake Sewer and Water Authority, review that and give some comments, and then hopefully be able to jump into the rate study connection fee review aspects early into 2021. There is some goals associated with that in terms of holding a special meeting and having those consultants come in and do some education with the township board. But very similar to this workshop, their preference is to do that in person. So we're trying to look into some innovative ways to maybe do that remotely. But a study has been funded and it's ongoing.
It's ongoing. Good. All right. So yeah, there's lots of information out there on comparative rates, but when you tie it into your infrastructure and your capitalist needs, then you have to really they have to really personalize that to your township. So it sounds like that's what's going on. That'll be another opportunity to take a good look into the future as well as currently, and how you move in those areas, especially if fees and REU schedules need to be increased to provide a stable and a secure financial future. That can also involve, Griffin, I'm sure as you're aware, and the rest of you are aware, also involve everybody, all the residents and the businesses in the township who have concerns of what those fees are going to be. Okay. Any other comments on that one?
The only other thing I would add is, just a reminder for the board, this was a major project we discussed during the budgeting sessions this year, largely related to, bluntly, the complexities related to the township's utility systems and the relationships we have with some of our partners, the city of Saugatuck, city of Douglas, Lake Township. And the goal of this study and this report is really to provide the justification for some of those future discussions, as Larry mentioned, the potential need to increase rates or justification to turn into educational materials for your constituents and the residents of the township. So this is one of those that I think it's difficult for us to sit here and go, wow, we've really advanced that a lot, because a lot of this work isn't being done directly by staff or directly by the township board. But I would say with a level of confidence, we're definitely moving this goal forward with all of your allocation of those resources from that study.
Right, and as I understand it, you don't always control all of the rate setting because you're partners and you are dependent on other authorities or entities that have that, and then you have a role to play within that as well, but not directly to say, boom, you have to maybe add surcharges for yourselves if that. So, yep.
Absolutely.
Well, that's good to move along. And, you know, that's something that has to, you know, is this the first time you've done that type of a study?
Yes, and I think that's part of why it's been a little slow to get going. The township hasn't had any real formal capital improvement plans related to their utility system. So it's taken quite a bit of time to try to get something together to then be able to start doing an accurate rate study on it. But again, all of this is investment now that's just going to benefit the township for many, many years to come. And I think, as Larry might have been alluding to, once you do this the first time, when you then build it in to be, you know, every 5 or 10 years, a more regular practice, it starts to build on itself. Very similarly to what the township's been doing the last few years with strategic planning. It builds on each other. So the fact it's the first year, it's a little slower to get going, but it's just going to help us moving forward. True.
And then continuing to keep it up every 5 years or so. You know, look at it within 3 years to see what you may need to, how you may need to amend the 5-year, how you approach it in 5 years, and you can prepare for that then. So yeah, very good. Okay, let's move to number 5, reduction of pension liability. It's been a really big issue everywhere in Michigan and elsewhere.
Well, I'll say we took major steps the last 2 years, and the last 2 budgets that this board's been responsible for, we made some really significant gains in the percentage that's covered. And I think we're on board, and I think the manager's on board to try to increase that percentage coverage even more so in the next budget year. So, this isn't done, but I consider it very fully achieved in terms of the goals for this year.
Do you have a end goal in mind? Has that been identified?
I don't think formally. I think in discussions that I've had with my colleagues and with Mr. Graham, I think the goal is we want to hit at least 60%, because that's the level at which you fall under the state watch list.
Right.
But we haven't formally said that.
Okay.
Not like a resolution.
All right. Anybody else?
Just as John mentioned, the township board's been contributing almost double the required contributions the last 2 years to try to start addressing.
To bring that.
So we've been our annual required contributions about $45,000, and the township board's been contributing between $80,000 to $90,000 the last few years.
Okay. And you've been able to do that financially without hurting other aspects of the township operation, or?
No impact. Correct.
It has required contributions from the fund balance, but the township's general fund balance is relatively healthy and has allowed that to be done without much concern.
And John, you were going to say something there?
No, I was just saying, my view is it's had virtually no impact on that aspect. Because the money's there, it just hadn't been a decision made to use it that way. In the past.
Sure. All right. Making notes here. Have you considered or made any changes to the pension plans?
Those were largely addressed prior to, my time with the township or this township board's terms of offices. The traditional defined benefit plan has already been closed. There's one active member still in it. And then all new hires are eligible for a hybrid plan. So with defined benefit and
Sure.
defined contribution pieces. And that plan is in much better shape. It's largely the old closed defined benefit plan that's significantly underfunded. And just for your note, part of the challenge with the township's plan is the percentages fluctuate incredibly because of the low number of people in them. So one retiree or one person passing away or one new hire can have dramatic swings in our funding percentages.
You're not alone in that. Thank you. All right, let's move to number 6 then, the Blue Star Trail.
I can take a stab at talking about this one.
Sure, Abby.
You guys hear me? My internet keeps popping up saying it's unstable. Blue Star Trail, it's been kind of a sore subject these past several years. There's been a lot of obstacles in coming to a consensus with our tri-community on how and just how we're going to complete it and connect it. But we did come up with a great plan to form a joint study committee. But unfortunately, COVID again presented a lot of obstacles for that. They felt it was really important to meet in person, so that was put on hold. Some new developments that impact that is Saugatuck, the city of Saugatuck has some new council members. And it's my understanding that the joint study committee is going to meet via Zoom later on or in January, right, Griffin?
Next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday already. So that, I mean, there's a great plan. I think that we're hopeful about it. It's just, it was out of our hands. We couldn't control,
Because of your other
pandemic.
partners.
Because of the partners and the pandemic kind of
Right.
slowed that down, but we're hopeful.
So because a large part of that improvement needs to be done in the city of Saugatuck, and we're in between city managers right now, I think it's important for the committee, when we meet on Wednesday, to prepare the road for success rather than make any specific decisions on design. Wait till we get our new city manager in place so he can be part of that discussion, he or she, I should say. And that's moving forward too. So I'm looking forward to getting that all accomplished over the winter months.
Is there, was the Blue Star Trail a part of the city elections? Was it any of the candidates running use that as something they wanted to see accomplished, or making a better commitment to it? Or you sound like you have some hope that the new council members may want to move it along. Would that be a correct assessment? Or
I'm convinced that the new council members do want to move it along. There's some significant obstacles to get there with the traffic flows and the street patterns and that kind of thing, but it's the goal of the council to at least explore all those issues and figure out a way to do it, whether or not it meets the Friends of the Blue Star Trail's expectations for ASHTO
Sure.
standards. So that's kind of my opinion of it. And I'm on that committee, and so is Brenda. So we should be able to report back relatively quickly.
Sure.
Cindy, can I just ask a quick question, Cindy? I got an email from your interim manager, and it says the next meeting is the 30th. So are you guys having an in-house meeting, a Saugatuck
No.
in-house? Oh,
Sorry, Brenda, I'm confusing the dates with another meeting that we're having next week, Wednesday.
you have too
So
many
you are
meetings.
correct. I
Okay.
do.
Not to mention our board meeting Wednesday, right?
Well, yeah,
Exactly.
it threw me. Yeah.
But Larry, several candidates did use Bike Trail in their advertising.
Good. That's
Are,
good.
are these meetings run through Saugatuck if we want to log in? How would we do that? Are we going to have our own link through the township, or? Because I kind of like to see what's happening with that.
I think it's our first Zoom. Let me look here. She's gonna send a Zoom link out in advance. So we can let you know, Stacy, if you want to come.
Thank you.
I assume that'll go out to the public too,
Okay.
right, Cindy?
I didn't know who's in charge of it, who's the head of this committee, or,
Well, right now it's Holly is the chair
okay.
and the vice,
okay.
but I don't know if we'll be reappointing people or different people.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a smaller governmental leadership group that meets on a monthly basis or every other month or quarterly? Cindy, do you get together with the Saugatuck leadership, you and Griffin and their interim manager and their mayor and other surrounding governments? Do you meet on a periodic basis with those folks?
Well, Larry, I'm in a rather unique situation because although I am township supervisor, I also am employed by the city of Saugatuck as planning and zoning administrator. So I'm in touch with them all day, every day, Monday through Friday.
Wonderful.
Hey,
Tell
Larry,
Peter the next time you see him, I said hello.
I will. And Diana also speaks highly of you, Diana McGrew.
Oh,
So-
she's a good one. Yeah, yeah.
Hey, Larry, I want to note and answer your question. The 3 township managers, and as you know, one city now has an interim manager, but in the last year and a half or so, they've been very successful at meeting monthly.
Great.
They were interrupted some by COVID, but I know those have started up again. And that is something that this board strongly encouraged to happen when we got on board. Another priority of this board that we started to work on was to do a first ever tri-community council and board meeting. And again, the feeling has been, because some of us have attended their respective council meetings to discuss this, everyone wants to do it, but the feeling is it really won't work in terms of having the public and being effective unless it's in person. So that's pending. So that's nothing regular, but the managers are kind of carrying that load for us right now.
Okay, great. That's good to know. So if the tri-council could meet in person, you think the other entities would be willing to meet periodically with a set agenda?
They both said yes. Now that was before the election, but I have a feeling the newly elected people would be just as positive about doing this.
Excellent, excellent. Those have proven to be very good for planning for future and clearing the air on issues. And it's always good to meet face to face on those types of things if possible. Much better than Zoom even,
Yeah.
where my lighting is pretty bad. But okay, very good. Let's move on to number 7, unless somebody else wants to add on any comments on Blue Star. All right, Harbor Lake Authority, Kalamazoo Lake Harbor Authority.
Well, this has kind of been my baby, so I'll just.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. In the last, 2 months, probably the number one goal relative to making this happen was to get the two cities to both vote affirmatively to either invite or allow the township in as a full voting member, which was our goal. That's happened. Now the ball's kind of in our court, and I know the Griffin's working with our attorneys. The interlocal agreement that set up the authority needs some revisions. We need to, as they say, cross some T's and dot some I's,
Right.
and clarify some of the budget issues. So I know that's in the works, and I think in the not too distant future, this goal will be accomplished.
Terrific. Terrific. What does, what are the financial obligations on the three parties then for resolving some of those issues with the Lake Harbor?
We need to codify in the agreement and make doubly sure they have verbally agreed that the township is not responsible for any past expenditures, including the initial setup, and that moving forward, all three communities, if there's a proposal that requires funding, it'll be up to each of the three of us to vote to do it. It doesn't have to be all or nothing.
Does the interlocal agreement spell out how you determine what each person's financial commitment to it is?
I don't remember. I haven't read it in a while, sorry.
I don't know if it's, however you design that, you pay for the milk carton or just the milk, type of stuff, discussions. So I'm assuming that, you three may have agreed to each pay an equal amount, or you may have some sort of a formula basis that would be a part of that.
I think it's pretty much case by case. And as I said, one or two could vote no, which could allow something to move forward on a more modest basis. Another point that needs to be completely confirmed is the number of voting members we'll have on the authority. In the past, we had a non-voting member, just one, but the other two cities, I think, have three each.
Oh, okay. So now you have one voting member or two?
No, right now we have nothing because we haven't formally.
Oh, because you
We
haven't
formally joined. That'll
Okay.
happen hopefully in 2021.
And something that may want to be noted with the Kalamazoo Lake Harbor Authority is currently they have no defined funding or revenue source. So it's a conversation that the authority's been having, I think, for several years, and the township is hoping to get a seat at the table to be able to participate in the discussions is what's the future of this authority? And if there's activities or services the community's looking for it to provide, is there a defined or a new revenue source that this authority needs to further explore?
So Griffin, was that authority set up without any of the legal ways to raise funds, as most authorities can?
It
Yes.
has the authority to do that.
It just has chosen not
It
to.
never
Not to. Okay.
Correct.
All right.
Yeah,
It-
and that's
it can.
and that's part of the challenge of getting the township included is that the township has been hesitant to join the authority without confirmation that the township board would get to determine if additional taxes were going to be charged to its residents. Bluntly, the township's been hesitant to join the authority where the two cities could then vote to, let's say, institute a millage, and the township goes, wait, we may not be on board to that.
Right.
So,
Got
or
it.
a special assessment district or whatever that revenue
Sure.
source may look like. So I think that's part of the discussion coming in the future of the authority is,
Got it.
okay, if we can
Yep.
get all three people with seats at the table, what do we actually want to do? Are there services this authority wants to provide? And then how do we pay for those?
Yes. All right. Got it. All right. That's very helpful. All right. Number 8 would be your ambulance service. What's the status of the desire to have an agreement? I see a thumb up. Cindy, does that mean accomplished? Does that mean we're
Totally.
terrible? We got lots to do or
Off the
Slam
list.
dunk.
off the list? All
Off the
right.
list.
Check.
And I might add, as far as I know, Griffin, you might want to add to this, but I have not received or heard of one single phone call or inquiry to the township board to the half of the township pays this special assessment, and it went up. I mean, percentage wise, it went up significantly. Actual dollars, it was fairly insignificant, but I've fielded no inquiries about that change.
Excellent.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's really good. All right, then let's go to number 9. This is your tri-community meetings. That seems to we already deal. We already deal with that one.
Think so.
Yeah.
Date to be determined.
Date to be determined. All right.
Hey, John,
Yeah.
I'm wondering if that, looking at how COVID is going, it may be a long time. We might want to just check with the other 2 entities and see if they, maybe want to have one Zoom or something just to get things rolling.
No,
I think it's
you might be right, because we could be Zooming till next summer. We don't know.
Yes.
I agree,
Yeah.
but it might be weird with so many people on it, but I think it's something to shoot for. I really do.
And I think
And
that's something that the 3 managers could address once the new one's in place. And then we can take
Yeah,
that
and
direction and give it a try.
it was a platform that we ran on
I know.
too.
Mm.
The collaboration is so important.
Yeah.
Good. Good. All right. Upgrade of facilities.
Mm.
Mm,
We got trees.
You got a
yeah, that's
tree?
true. Yeah.
No comment.
No, we did some work. We got all the
I know there's a
keys
lot of
and
groundwork. I know.
there were a lot of things done, but I think should be a high priority moving forward, in my opinion. But we did accomplish quite a bit. Griffin did the keys and the door thing and the server and, but we got to keep plugging along on that one, in my opinion.
Yep. It's time to make some
Okay.
priority choices for next year's.
I think
budget.
it should be high on our goal list, and that's going to be one of mine at least.
This will be greatly impacted by the proposal passing. So we'll have a lot more discretion or whatever funds available if we choose to take that route.
And Griffin has made a great start on getting the project lists and inventory of equipment and projected lifespan of each piece of equipment and when it needs to be replaced. He's done a great job on getting that well underway. Is it accomplished? Not completely, but he is diligently working on that. And I think part of that might be in your packet.
I feel we have a strong foundation started, and now we can actually move along with it because of the background work that Griffin has done, and it's getting closer to we can do some cosmetic things to the office, I hope.
Well, and if I can add in, I think one of the things, if you'll look at actually what some of the anticipated actions were for this year, the actions to advance this goal for this year were largely all what you all referenced. It's the background information. It's let's set the base. I know we've all had some conversations about moving forward, either next fiscal year budgeting some money, or this year, if the board wanted to consider some budget amendments, is bringing in an architecture consultant to do a space study and take a look at what it would actually take to do some of these things we've discussed, or to even make some recommendations to us and provide some estimates about what some different work would cost. I think we've discussed that's the next step. I think the question is just, if this is high enough on the priority list, is that something that we want to make an amendment for this year, or wait and just make sure that's included in next year's budget?
May I ask how urgent you think the need is?
Are you
It
asking
might
me?
have something to do with your timing decision.
Sure. I think we just work in an old facility. I think largely it's cosmetic. I mean, I think there's definitely some functional improvements we could add, but I would like to see a professional make some of those recommendations for us. So, I mean, in
So you
my
have some
opinion,
time.
yeah, I mean, in terms of operations, I don't think it's urgent like immediate, but I definitely think, the board's demonstrated it's a priority for them.
Mhm. At one time in my past, in one of the 4 communities I worked at, we did a major redevelopment of Township Hall, existing structure with an addition, and we used Notre Dame University architectural students who did it as part of their class projects to come in and do the space study and the needs study and come up with some design recommendations. And then we moved on to a building construction contract management system to affect all of those. So we didn't have to pay for all of the study stuff. It was the university that willfully took it on and did everything that they did. That might be an opportunity for you guys as well, but sounds like you're already moving along real well in that area. Okay.
If I can, I think the only other thing I'd add, and the board and I have discussed this on various occasions. We looked at upgrades. There's kind of 2 big pieces to upgrades. First one's obviously the significant financial costs of doing something like this, and with some of the millage opportunities as well as the healthy fund balance the township has, I think we're getting to the point where the finances isn't the challenge of this project. The challenge is going to be allocating the necessary staff time to manage this project, and understanding that just the time commitment that a project like this is going to take. And again, hearing from the board how high on the priority list this is, I mean, I think that's something that we're going to need to continue to discuss moving forward.
Sure.
What about it? I was curious if we should appoint maybe a committee or something that a couple people can work together and do some of the legwork to take some of the stress off of you, Griffin. I don't, although you probably could direct us, but if you need phone calls and things like that made, I talk all day.
I appreciate it.
More.
Yeah, I think those are definitely things we can discuss. And again, if going through this process, if we find this is, high or top of the priority list again, I mean, those are going to be the conversations we're going to need to have and start getting into the detail of, what are we talking about here? Because again, I think the other piece that may be helpful, and either throughout this process or at another point, is, the township board to talk a little bit more about what facility upgrades mean to them. Because I know I've had individual conversations with all of you, and just candidly, I think you all are on board for wanting facility upgrades or improvements, but I'm not sure if we're all on the same page of what that exactly means or what that looks like. And I think that's the next step. And then once the board's all on the same page, you all can give me as the manager and staff that direction, and we're going to be happy to advance that and start to make recommendations and figure out what those next steps process wise are.
And in exercise 2 and 3, you'll get that opportunity. So think about that when we get into that. What's the best thing and worst things about our facilities? Again, thinking macro and thinking micro, and all of the we coulds, think in the micro and think in the macros. and what that actually might be, so that we can get to the point of priority ranking and setting the goal in great detail as to what is to be accomplished and to whom, and the time frame, and what resources are necessary to accomplish that. So when you get into those other exercises, remember this conversation, because it seems to be a nice high priority of interest in all of you. So excellent, great.
I want
Anything?
to just, can I, oh, sorry. I loved your idea of the architecture students, and my daughter was in commercial design, and I will bet we could also bring in some students to do that. We also have some great residents who are phenomenal designers. I wonder if anyone would volunteer sometime. You know, we wouldn't expect them to volunteer a ton of time, but it might be, that might also be a starting point. I mean, after we do the questionnaire and that kind of stuff, is bringing in some students.
Love it.
Maybe they'll have to be post-COVID.
Well, they can walk around and do their studies and with their masks and gloves and stuff as well. But yeah, that's one of those things that how do you want to approach it? Do you want to hire a consultant? Do you want to spend time working with an architectural students or classes, a professor or whatever, community people to come in and do a group that way and solicit ideas, or the consultant? So we have to see where which of that priority is the consensus, the process, which part of that process is the consensus to use. Yeah. All right, very good. Number 11 goes back to Tri-Community Master Plan. Some communities have found this to be very, very successful in working with neighboring entities to develop master plans. What's this one? Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I'd like to speak to this and maybe give you some background that you may already know, but I mean, and the timing on this one couldn't be better. You know, we put it on the priority list a year ago as well, because since our administrations started a year and a half ago, we brought on a new zoning administrator and planner. And then in terms of our planning commission itself, in the last 2 years, we've brought on 3 new members that replaced existing members at the time. We have a new chair. So all that's very integral, obviously, to reviewing the tri-community plan. And we're coming up in 2021 on the 5th year anniversary of the existing revised plan. The good news is there's been a plan in place for several years. It's been revised once, I believe, by all 3 communities, and that's coming up again next year. We've also, one of our priorities has been, because it's strongly suggested by the Michigan Association of Planners, that township boards and their full planning commission meet once a year in a joint session to discuss the status of the plan. Again, that's one we started to plan, but haven't done because of COVID. Again, maybe in the new year, we've got to readdress that and do it by Zoom. But the good news is a ton of groundwork's been done. The new zoning administrator did a very thorough, exhaustive review that she shared with all of us. And hopefully everyone's read the plan. You know, it's always worth rereading. I read parts of it again yesterday, and I won't go into the details now, but you know, there's some really key points in the plan that I think need to be addressed by all 3 communities, relative to the fact that either in some ways they've been ignored or not fully followed. But again, my bottom line here is so much work's been done in the last year. And I think we will all probably endorse keeping this a very top priority.
Good.
And it's on the Saugatuck City Planning Commission's radar as well, that's coming from the township, and we're going to build on that and on the existing plan.
Very good. Anybody else? All right. Let's take a look at number 12. Rebid professional services and contractors. Is this as a group, or is this all Griffin to do, or where are we at with this?
Well, Griffin did an amazing job in organizing and sharing with all of us a totally extensive list of every type of professional contractor we work with. Some are under contract, some are not, but they're all independent contractors that provide a service from, cleaning the office to legal counsel representation. So that in itself was a huge success that we know had never been done previously. So we need to applaud him and ourselves for making that happen.
Yeah.
To my knowledge, we haven't rebid anything. And there was some talk that there's a softer approach to rebid where you just do some inquiries to find out who might be out there that can either help enhance what you're getting in support, because a lot of these relationships are not strictly one-on-one, and they're certainly not exclusive.
Right.
So that aspect, I'd like us to see us study more in the future, but there's no glaring problem, I don't think. So that's my feeling.
And Griffin also made a really good case for not, in some cases, not doing the professional RFPs or, going back out for bid in some cases, because we might alienate some people that we use who really do give us very fair prices.
Although it is often standard practice to rebid every 5 years for certain keywords.
Yeah.
They've all done that a lot. It doesn't imply any dissatisfaction.
John and Brenda, do you know if you have the flexibility in your procurement policy to do formal, informal, verbal types of solicitations so that you can keep those sensitivities and friendliness with your current contractors while is Griffin allowed to, let's say for your cleaning service, while you have a contract with somebody for that, is he, rather than do a formal rebid, post and advertise all of that, is he able to make inquiries, informal inquiries by telephone to other opportunities to see if it is advantageous to do a formal rebid or not? Is there that
I'll defer
flexibility?
to, I was
As
going
far
to
as I
defer to
know, the
Griffin.
answer would be yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's yes. Griffin? It is, yes, right?
We have a lot of flexibility in how we address professional services as defined by our purchasing policy.
Okay.
Some other contracted services, depending on the cost of the service, so really the price threshold, it varies which processes we need to use according to our policy.
So on the higher ones, you probably more likely have formal bid process.
Correct. I would also
Even
say the higher cost services tend to be the professional services, so attorneys, engineers, planners, etc. And we have a lot more flexibility based on those as defined in our policy.
And the policy for those is less flexible. Is that what I'm hearing?
It's more flexible for professional services. It's less flexible for your more standard, just contracted services.
Oh,
so
okay. All right.
Cleaning services and such. But at the price point that those services would be, it may not hit the threshold of needing to formally bid.
Okay. All right. Because you'll find most communities find in those professional services like legal and engineering, those you develop that relationship with those firms and they don't bill you for everything.
Right.
So when you rebid,
right.
You have some worry there.
And that's part of the conversation we had this year was, again, if you look at some of the specifics of the anticipated actions for this year's goal, I mean, we really did move forward in terms of collecting information and summarizing and starting to log the different professional and contracted services the township works with. I think for 2 or 3 months, the township board really discussed those in detail and at this point decided that rebidding any of those services wasn't the priority right now. But again, as John
Okay.
or anyone else on the board mentioned, that can always be revisited.
Sure. And you've got a policy that addresses where you have flexibility and where you don't,
Correct.
and how that breaks, and you're comfortable with that.
Correct.
It appears.
I think the next steps we really had in terms of these relationships, where we have some long-term relationships with some contracted services providers that have never had formal contracts or agreements. And my understanding is the board prioritized creating agreements and contracts with those service providers before moving forward with potentially rebidding contracts and services that we already have formal agreements with.
Okay. Good for me. Let's move on to number 13 then. Administrative Policy Handbook.
That was a grand slam.
Yep,
Mhm.
we did it. When I say we, I mean you guys. I did nothing.
Great. And is there a periodic review of that administrative policy handbook in there? Probably, as the need arises, at least.
Yeah, let's say as needed.
Yes, and at this,
Barely a year old.
yeah, and at this point, so over the last year and a half, the township's board has adopted a personal policy handbook, administrative policy handbook, and financial policy handbook. And all of them are really starting places. And over the last year, there's been addition and review of those. And I would
Okay.
expect that would continue.
Great, 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 great. That's always a large task to get done in every community. And the fact that you've done it in the last year means you're probably much more up to date and current than most communities. So good job. Good job. All right, let's take a look at number 14, North. I'm sorry, did I cut somebody off?
Oh, I was just going to say regarding the policy handbook, again, Griffin deserves a great deal of credit for all of that. He
Mhm.
put an incredible amount of work into it, and we're very satisfied with the outcome.
Yes. And it's very helpful to a manager to have that current and up to date, and to have its board understand it as well. So congratulations to all of you. All right, North Shore of Saugatuck Development. Phew.
I guess we can take this off the list, right?
Well, I think there might be those in the media and the larger area that have had
I'm
a voice
joking.
on this stuff. Yes.
I don't want to go first, though. I want to hear what some of my colleagues might say.
Did we lose Cindy, by the way?
Oh. Uh-oh.
No, come back.
We're down to 7 participants, huh?
She just texted me, her internet connection kicked her out. She's trying to get back in.
Ah.
Okay.
So is that one of the things you vision for Saugatuck Township, to create a public Wi-Fi that everybody in the township can have the highest, best, fastest broadband services? I'm just saying that.
You might need to go on our list, though. There's more help coming from the state, so we should probably explore that more.
Yep. Yep.
There's a lot of dead spots in our town.
Can be a municipal service.
Especially now with homeschooling and home working. I mean, it's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. Yep, I saw a thumbs up there, Brenda. All right. North Shore Saugatuck Development, back to that one. Ongoing, always to be aware of, always to be a participant in. Is
Yep.
there
We take some more leadership and fine tuning.
and got it.
This will be on our board agenda next Wednesday night. So there are things we.
Larry, I think if I can cut in, you actually just explained it really, really well. It's something that the township board continues to be aware of, continues to follow. Staff time is being allocated to following and being involved in this process, updating the township board as appropriate. I think it's almost a challenging goal or priority for the board in the sense of there's not a like specific or defined action looking to be taken. Instead, it's more of it's such an influential project on the area. The board has at least demonstrated to me they just want to make sure it continues to be on the forefront of the board and staff's mind when progress or changes occur that may influence the project.
Okay, very good. I got it. And is your township board of cohesive opinion on this?
Not sure.
I think they could speak for themselves on that one. If not, I would definitely like to know.
Well, as I said, it's on the agenda for next Wednesday, and I do think there possibly are some actual action steps we may need to consider or at least discuss, because this is something, it's certainly a work in motion and a lot's going on this front.
Okay.
And it doesn't just involve the board. I mean, it involves the planning commission and the zoning administrator, and it's a top priority in the tri-community master plan as well. So we need to take all of that into consideration.
If I can interrupt real quick, Cindy, were you able to rejoin? Can you hear us okay? Cindy, were you the one who just called back in on the phone? If you're able to unmute, it's *6.
I see. There.
I can hear you now on my phone, and the computer's trying to rejoin.
Okay, we can hear you again too. That's great. Thank you.
Cindy's area will be the first beneficiary of our township-wide Wi-Fi.
There you go.
I'm definitely in favor
Cindy.
of that.
Huh?
I'm definitely in favor of the Wi-Fi plan.
Yeah, well, years ago when the legislature allowed the private suppliers to cherry pick which parts of a community they wanted to go, it created a lot of problems for a lot of municipalities around the state because some residents had great service while others don't. So that's always led to a debate as to how do you assure everybody can have the same access, since high-speed broadband is such a not a luxury anymore, but a critical infrastructure need. My opinion, my soapbox. Okay. Number 15, wellhead protection ordinance. Slam dunk? Done?
Almost.
Almost?
Ongoing.
The draft is completed?
Draft will be addressed by the second time by the Planning Commission on December 14th.
Draft in progress.
And again, this is one where a lot of progress was made over the last year,
Absolutely.
primarily by staff and legal counsel.
So the-
Meetings are very exciting.
Well, this can be an emotional issue for some with what's in the wellhead protection ordinance and how it relates to new developments. So
It already is.
yep, it looks like you've had some of those discussions already at the Planning Commission. And so the draft ordinance at the Planning Commission is what is there reflective of prior discussion and debate and input from the public on that as well, or is no public hearings been held on it?
There was a public
That's
hearing
what I
held on
thought.
it at the October Planning Commission meeting.
Okay,
Yes.
all right.
Yeah, the ordinance originated from from the Wellhead Protection Team, which is a collaborative effort between Saugatuck Douglas, Saugatuck City, the Fire Department, Allegan County, and the Sewer and Water Authority. The Township Board had some discussion about it earlier in the year, directed staff to prepare an updated draft, and it's now at the Planning Commission level and moving through that process.
And is that the same ordinance that the Douglas and Saugatucks will consider as well?
They both already have adopted ordinances. It is quite similar. I will share that there's been some changes, bluntly just due to the township's land use distribution is so different than the two cities. And being a township, there's some changes that needed to be considered, but all in all, it's very similar to the two cities ordinances.
Great. Welcome back, Cindy. All right. Good. Wait, we're moving right along. We're up to the last one. Lakeshore Drive short and long-term planning. One head shake no, another.
It's a challenge.
What makes it such a challenge?
Well, the water erosion this year has just been devastating. So we've got a big problem. You know, we've had to close a portion of the road in addition to what was closed several years ago. So it's a difficult challenge that we have to work on.
It's also been tough, Larry, because so many of the stakeholders, the people that are affected directly, their homes, I don't have the percentage, Griffin might know, but I think a majority, if not a significant minority of the owners, they're not full-time residents. They live in St. Louis and Chicago and all sorts of places. It's hard to get them involved in a meeting. It's hard to get them to agree on certain options. And it seems to me we're doing our damn best on this, primarily because of Manager Graham's leadership and involvement with between the road commission and the county and other concerned municipal entities.
Sure.
It's been pretty crazy, and you know the situation. It's all over the state.
Yep.
Far cry from a few years ago when everyone was screaming about low levels and dredging needs.
True, it is.
Larry, have you had much experience in this, and any recommendations or advice, or?
The only direct experience I've had is we had when I was with Benton Charter Township, Hickman Park Hills, two high-end residential districts on two hills overlooking Lake Michigan, had an awful lot of erosion concerns during that high water period in Lake Michigan, and roadway and homes were endangered. And so those residents, again, probably half of them were out of not full-time residents, and the other half were, and they were all interested in doing something, but the price tag was so huge that what we did as the township said, we will finance it and we will bill you over a 15-year period for your share. And so we took the obligation and debt on, and had a small interest fee for the financing, so that in 15 years, the bite for each of the homeowners, rather than approaching $50,000 to $100,000 each, was much, much smaller, and that they all were eager to have and accept. And that plan was accepted 100% by full-time residents and the non-residents, who then saw their assessments for that. You could do it over a 3-year period or a 5-year period, but even then the dollar amounts were so huge that we spread it over a longer period of time by agreement with all of them, and that stuck. So that's about the only thing that my direct experience is how to lessen the financial obligations to get the participation, because you certainly don't want the housing stock value to decline to nothing in those areas. So what there is an interest, we felt there was an interest in the township taking the role to keep that tax base high. So we did, and that included putting in French drains and all sorts of structures in those two hills. Had a big layer of clay in the hill, and then so the rainwater would sit on top of that and erode, and as the lake was eroding the base, it was opening up all of that. So we did a lot of planting, dune grass plantings, other types of plantings on that whole hillside, and redid the road and redid the drains and spread it over a 15-year period. So everybody was real happy with it. I don't know if that relates to your options at all. The County Road Commission was ecstatic over that because they didn't have the funds to finance all of it. We put it all in one big proposal, and so the County Road Commission was one of those entities that paid over time as well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Good input. Thank you.
Other than that, I'm not sure what the latest with the state of Michigan is on permitting properties to protect their shorelines and how that might impact you. I know in my neck of the woods down here, New Buffalo to St. Joseph and all, there's been an awful lot of fast actions to protect shorelines and protect homes. Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a question for Griffin on this. Have there been some small steps, some positive developments with emergency routes and such recently?
There's been very little progress in regard to short-term emergency routes. The road commission and I worked really closely with communicating with these property owners, and unfortunately, because it's almost exclusively private property in that area, if we don't get cooperation from private property owners, there's very little we can do. So unfortunately, short-term emergency access once the road reopened, the residents really stopped pushing it. Now, if it has to close again in the future, will that change? Yes, I would think so. In regard to long-term progress, we've actually made quite a bit of progress this year. As you all likely know, a resolution of support is going to be brought before you all at next week's meeting in regard to a CZM coastal zone management grant that the road commission and I have been working on in regard to getting some state funding to pursue a feasibility study, cost benefit analysis, and alternative analysis in regard to some long-term options in that area, with the thought being, if we're able to get these studies funded, it will then make a future construction grant much more competitive. I can go into it in some more detail on Wednesday, but we're really following the model of the city of Marquette and I think Marquette Township, don't quote me on that, but some local governments up in the Upper Peninsula, coincidentally, they also had a road called Lakeshore Drive that was eroding, and they were able to eventually get state funding to help them reconstruct that road back. And that's very similarly to what we're exploring. So we're really following their model, and the first step of that is pursuing the CZM funding.
If I might, that triggered a thought in what we had to do in that township, because the road had lost, then the emergency vehicles had lost access.
Correct.
So the township, we worked with a few of the property owners and got easements from their property so that the roadway could a roadway could be opened and developed there. so that we could sculpt it out and put in a nice base so a fire truck and ambulances and police and everybody could get through fine. And then at the end of the project, we restored it back to their equal things. And all of that cost was built into this 15-year financing aspect of it that everybody bought into. So
we have tried that and would love to do that. Unfortunately, we're not getting the cooperation we need at this point to make that happen,
yeah,
which is too bad. Again, at this point, and don't get me wrong, I understand, if anything, how difficult this is for those property owners. I just think at this point, with the road being open again, it's not as quite as high a priority for them. So I think we'll wait and see. And unfortunately, if that road has to get shut down again, we can reinitiate those conversations. But that's why, at least for the last several months, the short-term discussion has really been put on hold, and we've really dedicated our time to trying to find a longer-term, more sustainable solution.
okay, great. That was really helpful for me, and I hope it wasn't a waste of all of your time, because this was really helpful, and it'll set up for the exercises 2, 3, and 4 that you'll get. And then after today's session, you'll get exercise 1, which will take you some time and to send me back with that. And we'll go back to the time frame for the exercise 2, December 10th, which you'll get. Griffin will be sending you all of those, and you have my email address, so responses can be scanned in and sent back to me that way as well. So that'll be great. And again, you have my phone number if there are any questions when you see those exercises and you have any thoughts or questions on them. Send me a text, give me a call, send me an email, and I'll get back with you as quickly as I can so that we can continue to move in this process. Any last comments? Let me ask you then, I want to ask each one of you, what's the one thing you think I need to know about Saugatuck Township that will help me in this planning process and goal setting process? What's the one thing that you want me to know? Just the one thing. Who wants to start?
I can go first if you can hear me.
Okay, I can hear you.
I can go first if you can hear me.
Yeah.
I think the one thing that you need to know is that Saugatuck Township really is very stratified. There's the lakeshore component that's quite wealthy, and then there's the rural component that is not quite so wealthy and is basically agricultural and residential, large lot residential. So there's a big stratification there of our residents.
Very good.
I think maybe you should, one thing that we're all kind of looking for is future development, and in a thoughtful way though. We don't want a bunch of chains and things like that, but we're open to kind of some cool, things that we can bring to the area and enhance the tourism aspect. Ideas about that, I think, or housing type things too, is another thing that we're looking at, like affordable, but it's difficult around here because it is an expensive area. So
Great. Brenda, Abby, John?
I can go.
Okay.
I think that what has stood out to me about our community is our residents. Many of them are educated. Many of them are retired. So they have some time on their hands and their experience. They're active in the community. And that is incredible for us It's wonderful. We have tons of people. I know for myself as the clerk, I have so many people ready and willing to help in elections. They're capable. The only drawback to that is these people do have stronger opinions than some other places that I've lived, because they have a large stake in what's, they have a large interest. They care about what's going on in their community.
Yep. Okay. Brenda?
I'm still thinking, I'm percolating.
John?
Well, I guess I would underscore, and you probably know this about the area, but most people, even those that live here, refer to this area as Saugatuck. It's world-renowned, tourist. It's a great place. And I'm always struck by the fact that so few people realize that Saugatuck Township contains the vast majority of the lakeshore properties. We have, because of our size being a township, we dwarf the two cities that get a lot more notoriety. We have double the population of the two cities together, and we're expecting that to be even more when the census comes out. And even though we've had tremendous growth in the last 10 years, we still have vast amounts of open land. And I think that's going to be such a challenge in the mid to long-term future. Cindy mentioned the farms and agriculture. Are they going to start selling because the land is so valuable? And we've got to grapple with, others have mentioned this, and we're looking at all sorts of things relative to attainable housing and secondary SDUs, adding a secondary dwelling units on your property if it's large enough. And I think we're all on board to embrace those challenges. And I guess I would leave it at that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, Brenda.
Things that we would like you to know.
Yep. That you think will help me in this process.
Right. I really agree with everything that's been said, especially the stratification. I think that's important to know. I guess I think that what would help, but again, that's not your question, is education about, as we talked about, the taxes and where the money goes. I think there's so much misinformation about how, people think we get every tax dollar that we collect. And I don't know, just a lot of that kind of stuff is more education about the community at large. But otherwise,
Sure.
I honestly, at the moment, can't think of anything. If I do, I'll email you.
That'll be fine.
Okay.
Yeah, and can I interpret that as to indicating that your residents, as great as they are, can benefit by being better informed about the township and how it operates?
I think
Would
so.
that be okay?
Yeah.
All right.
Everyone agree?
Oh, can I add a PS? I have a PS. I'm gonna keep this short.
Sure.
But it just dawned on me because I get defensive about this. There's a lot of confusion among township residents about where they live.
Oh, yeah.
Because of their post office address. I have actually argued with friends that live on Lakeshore Drive. They have a Fenville PO. They post online, "Hi from Fenville," and they've argued with me. It's like, well, where do you go to vote? I mean, I don't know if there's anything we can do about that, but I think it hurts our cohesive, civic duty if a third or more of our residents don't even know they live in Saugatuck Township.
Yes, those civic engagement projects there's been some very nice successful ones around the state dealing with just that issue. And it's mostly at township levels where people can live in different zip codes and they identify with their zip code, Fenville, more so than Saugatuck Township, or Saugatuck City or Douglas City or whatever. And there's been some nice civic engagement projects to continually remind people where they live. So, one of them, when you send out tax bills, they have sent out a map of their township and with a star on it as to where their property in that township is. And even though you have a Fenville mailing address, by gosh, you are in our township, which is why you're getting our tax bill and the flyers that may go with those. And those that have sewer and water services and doing those billings have done those sort of things as well. The quarterly newsletters have reminded people, with maps and neighborhoods and stuff like that to continually identify folks. It might be worth checking out some of those civic engagement at township levels for how to increase the percentage of residents that identify as a township resident, not as a zip code resident.
And we have 3 school districts, which further complicate.
Yeah. Yes, sure. Yes.
I think the best story that illustrates that was the woman that came in and publicly spoke about her taxes being increased. It was what were we doing? Was it the ambulance? Yes.
Yeah.
And anyway, so she goes on, and then I think it was Griffin finally met with her. It turns out she was on the wrong side of the street. She wasn't in the township, and I think the increase amounted to maybe 50 cents. So, the map with the star might help, but if you're on one side of the street or the other, it might not.
That's right. Yep.
So.
Well, there's ways to be creative with that. And I don't know, is it on your website? Have you got it all all sorts of ways? I'm just saying you might want to take a look at some of those thoughts because it would indeed be beneficial to you. And as you appoint committees and things, do you have people from each of the school districts on committees? Do you have people with different zip codes on official township functions and committees to continually do that? Is there a citizens interest committee, that you could include that with? But yeah. Well, thank you all very much. Any last words from anybody? If not, I will say thank you, and I appreciate the last hour.
Thank you.
Plus.
Yes, thank you.
I do have some last words.
Okay.
Larry, this is kind of an ask of you, is although the goal setting process really needs to be board driven, obviously, as we're going through and evaluating and our current goals and setting new ones and strategizing and planning, because of your vast, 32 years of experience, I guess my ask, and I'm only speaking for myself, and I'd be interested to hear what the board here feels, is that if you see missed opportunities or weak areas for us, that you would give us your, unsolicited opinion about those subjects.
Definitely will. Yes. And as we go through the process, I will probably identify some of those that I will suggest and comment on. Mm-hmm.
And Larry, just logistically or process wise for everyone, just to confirm, when this meeting ends, you're going to send out the first round of surveys and questionnaires to them to then
You want me to do that, Griffin, or are you going to send them to everybody?
Either way, what do you prefer?
How do you all prefer? Do you want them coming from my email address or Griffin's, or does it matter?
Doesn't matter to me.
Doesn't matter.
But it might be easier and more direct from you to us because it's going back to you.
Will do. I'll send those out to you today then.
Okay, thank you. And then just a reminder.
Let me ask a question there. Do you prefer MS Word document or an Adobe PDF file?
Word.
Well, yeah, Word. I mean, do we fill it out online and send it back? Or
You could do that. Yes, you can.
So that should be Word because
Yeah.
PDFs you can't edit.
Good enough. All right. we'll do that with all of the exercises then. That'll be great.
Okay,
All
and
right.
just a reminder for everyone on the board. So if that first exercise is going to be coming from Larry, later today, as it's included in the outline, please do your best to have that completed and returned to him by the date included on the outline. We all have had some individual conversations about this, and Larry even highlighted it at the beginning of the workshop today. We recognize the amount of work this is going to put on you, but really for this to be successful, we tried to limit the time commitment of each individual exercise and split them into a few different rounds. But because of that, there's some relatively quick turnarounds on a few of them. So please use this outline and please have this be your best friend, because this is really going to help you understand what you can expect when these things need to be returned to Larry, and then the next steps when we'll have some next public discussion about some of them. But as always, Larry and I are here to help facilitate this process and make it as easy as possible for you all. I really appreciate you all letting us do this. I think it's got a tremendous impact for our organization, and as I think you all have seen, going through and reflecting on last year's goals, we had some really ambitious goals that the board knew that. I mean, we discussed that last year and last February when they were originally adopted. But if anything, I think you've seen the tremendous steps we've taken on them and the benefits processes like this have. So I just want to thank you all again for letting us do this and tell you how excited I am to be able to take this, one step further.
Great.
Awesome.
Yeah, we've really come a long way, Larry, since we were first elected, and we work well as a group, and we are all enthusiastic, and we appreciate your help and leadership in this too.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right. Thank you all. I'll sign out and you can close out your meeting. I don't know if there's any public comments I need to hear about.
Can we ask Daniel if he has any input?
Well, yeah, Brenda, we're on our next.
When we get there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Our next section's public comment. So if
Right.
Madam Supervisor, if you're okay moving forward, we can take public comment.
Okay, I'm hoping you can still hear me.
Yep.
Absolutely.
We will then open the public comment portion of the meeting and ask anyone who's in the audience that requests to make a comment, unmute themselves and speak up.
I believe it's just me, Daniel DeFranco.
It is. It is.
I guess the only thing that I would, I guess the biggest thing that I still kind of have a concern with, and it might just be because I'm new on the planning commission, but I was taken aback at the last meeting by the pushback that we got on the wellhead ordinance from North Shore. They, I wrote the minutes, so I kind of went back over their argument, and they had their lawyer present. So it seems that they're particularly concerned that this wellhead ordinance could restrain activities that they see as essential on their property. I'm not sure if Lene and the attorney are going to be able to satisfy their concerns. I'm going to be interested to see. I'm sure they're going to be coming back for the meeting on December 14th to see, what they say. But they were a little bit all over the place. They were attacking the ordinance as a whole. I looked into some of their concerns and they kind of fell apart. But what I gather is they're saying that there's specific things that they want to do on that property that the wellhead ordinance would not allow them to do. And based on the hydrological studies, they believe that whatever activities they want to do would not threaten the aquifer. So I just think it's something to keep on our radar that, from the past, they've been pretty persistent, and they're not afraid to bring in attorneys. So I'm kind of prepared for whatever they're going to bring to that next meeting. I mean, I still think that the wellhead ordinance is incredibly important, and it's something that, I'm in favor of, but it's just, I think, something that the board it's something that should be on the board's radar, that North Shore is not happy with it. And they have no problem bringing their attorney to the meeting and letting you know that they're not happy with it.
Thank you, Mr. DeFranco. Is there anybody else that would like to make a public comment? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
This is Marcy, so moved.
I'll
That
make-
we adjourn the special board meeting.
I'll support.
I already did.
Oh, sorry.
Moved by Marcy, supported by Helmrich. Any discussion?
No,
Okay, I'll go ahead and call the roll. Marcy,
yes.
Helmrich,
Yes.
Osmond, yes. Bigford,
Yes.
Aldrich,
Yes.
motion carries. We are adjourned.
Yay.
Nice to see you all.
Yay.
Daniel, thank you for coming.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you. It was a great meeting. You guys did a fantastic job.
great work, everyone.
Thank you.
It was fun. We should do it more than once a year.
Yeah.